Well, thank you. Sweet. Well, thank you, Chris, for organizing this and for having me on. Always love to give back and to teach, and definitely Rising Stock. One of our focuses for this upcoming year is doing more throughout the year, giving back to divisions, doing more throughout the year, conversation and teaching and financial education as well. So thank you all for being here. I'm excited to go through a variety of different topics with this too. Just to intro myself just a little bit too. I did win one silver cup back in my day when I was a district manager in 2019. I started with Cutco in 2015, did sales for a couple summers, decided to go branch in 2017. My branch was horrible. So if you are struggling, it's okay. You can figure it out. It definitely is something that took me some time and really learning on the job. Went DM in 2018. Got my years mixed up. So went DM in 2018 after graduating from the University of Denver. Was able to pay off all my student loans in my first 8 months of being a district manager as well, which was awesome. So that was really one of my goals, was to graduate debt free. Coached, was able to coach with a Rising Stock coach throughout my time as a branch and district manager too. So learned a lot about money through the process. Left the business in 2021, kind of floated around deciding what I wanted to do. Honestly, took about 6 months off, kind of lived off of savings after leaving the business, and then decided to get into more of the coaching aspect. So I'm a coach for a couple different companies, and then, working with Rising Stock obviously as well. So I love talking about money. I think that money is something that there's like a weird stigma. People don't like talking about it. It's like taboo almost to talk about money. Have you guys heard the saying, in order to know your numbers, excuse me, in order to grow your numbers, you need to know your numbers, right? So in order to improve your financial situation, it takes intentionality around that too. So the title of my talk is how to win your financial game in 2024. Okay. So it goes over a variety of different topics. It's something that some of you guys might have understandings of some of these topics. Some of you guys might know nothing about anything. Some of you guys might, know some things about some things and, nothing about other things as well. Really, my goal is just that this talk allows you guys to take implementable action, right? Find something, just one step, whatever it is that you can implement to start your financial journey in the direction that you want it to go, right? I think one of the things I'm going to talk about a lot today is direction is more important than speed, right? So if you start early and you're heading the right direction, you're going to get where you want to go. Sometimes, has anybody ever gotten frustrated because you have like a bad sales week, or you're not doing well financially, or you feel like you're stuck like in whatever financial spot that you're in? So that's what we're going to talk about, is how to change financial habits. There's a lot of different little things. So instead of tangenting, I'm just going to open up the slides. We're going to go ahead and go through that. I would recommend taking good notes. I would recommend writing down action steps as well. I think that's one of the big things with, when you're learning things that, if you have understandings of some things, you don't understand other things as much. Try to figure out like, what are your action steps? So notes and action steps, I would separate that in your talk as well. Could I share my screen? It says it's disabled for me to share the screen. I may need to be co-host. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So let's jump in and get started. So how to win your financial game in 2024. So we're going to talk about 4 stages of financial development. How do you move your way up the financial ladder? Financial habits just in general. Why being young sucks and is awesome all at the same time. The rule of 72, which is a rule of investing. We'll talk about the order of investing as well. Why and how to develop a millionaire mindset, and then how do you set good goals too. That's one of the things that I had a division specifically request. That has anybody ever, like, you have goals kind of, but you're not really sure what they are, you're not really sure how to get there and map it out? So how do you actually set good financial goals that are going to move you in the direction you're trying to go as well? So the 4 stages of financial development. Stage 1 is survival. Okay, you're trying to pay your bills. It's paycheck to paycheck. This is not anything to be embarrassed about, because have you guys heard that about 60%, 70% of Americans do live paycheck to paycheck? There's a lot of people in survival. Okay, that's normal. The goal is to get out of survival. Second stage is stability. Okay, your bills are covered. Maybe you're saving a little bit each month. You're not worried about eating dinner that night. Doesn't have to be ramen. Okay, so from survival to stability. Next step would be success. Okay, you're paying all your bills, you're saving, you're investing in your future, right? Whether it's through real estate, investing in your retirement account, putting money in different places. And then the fourth stage is significance. Okay. You have enough money that everything's paid for. You're doing what you want to do. Maybe you start a nonprofit. You're contributing, giving back to charity. Okay. Having things that you're able to give back and impact other people as well. In order to move from survival to stability, the number one thing that it takes is a change in habits. Okay. Does anybody like Starbucks or beer or nicotine or like sodas or energy drinks, or like who has like you're spending money on little things consistently, right? And so changing the habits of spending the money on these little things all the time, right? Changing the habits in terms of saving, right? Paying yourself first. There's a lot of different habits that you can change that move from survival to stability. In order to go from stability to success, takes a change in mindset. You're learning about money. You're talking to people about money. You're asking questions. Again, paying future you versus current you. Okay. And then in order to move from success to significance, it takes a change in priorities. You guys can take it, feel free to take screenshots of slides as well. I'm happy to send these slides out if anybody wants to review these too. Okay. But changing habits would be the first thing. If you feel like you're in survival mode, let's look at your habits, shift some things, and try to work towards stability, change in mindset to get to success, change in priorities to get to significance. Do you guys realize that this is not a linear path necessarily? Sometimes things happen where you get to stability and then you drop back down to survival, or you get to success and you drop back down to stability. Again, direction is more important than speed. So as long as you're continuing to work on the things that you control, that's more important than you jumping from survival to significance in a year. Probably ain't happening, right? And so figure out where you want to go. If you figure out what is financial significance for you, what is financial success, what is financial stability, and then starting to make the processes, taking the steps to work yourself towards those things as well. With financial habits, there's really two things that make you become wealthy. Number one, spend less than you earn. Okay, spend less than you earn. It's pretty obvious, right? If you're spending less than you're earning, you have more money that you can save and invest and put in other places. Number two is start investing early. Okay. The best time to start investing was yesterday. The second best time is today, right? So if you're not investing a lot, you have other places you want to start putting your money, work on spending less than what you're earning, right? Cool thing about Cutco too, guys, is like, if you do a couple extra demos, you can make a little bit more money, right? So if you feel like you're spending, that you can't decrease your spending, work on increasing your income. And that's called that's called the savings gap. Okay. The savings gap is the difference between your income and your spending, right? And so the way to increase your savings gap, the money that you can put in other places, is you can decrease your expenses or you can increase your income, right? Those are the two ways to grow the gap. And so if you feel like you're like, can't really cut a lot of expenses, raise your hand if you're like, I can think of at least one expense that if I needed to cut it, I probably could reduce it at least a little bit. Awesome. So look at the things that you can control and raise your hand if you're like, if I did 5 extra demos a week, my income would probably go up, right? So again, if you can do both of those things, that's how you build it faster, right? But make sure that you're minding that income gap. This is just the old example. Who's seen this example before where if you spend $5 on a cup of coffee every single day, you're going to spend a lot of money? Cool. So $5 per day on Starbucks or coffee, or again, energy drinks, whatever your vice is. Okay. But $5 per day is $1,825 per year. Over 5 years, that's $9,125 that you're spending on a $5 cup of coffee, right? Do you guys think that it's okay to maybe get a $5 cup of coffee once a week or twice a week instead of every single day, right? And so again, it's like figuring out where are the spots where you can cut back. Can you make your own coffee every day? And then when you have a grand week or whatever, whatever qualification you create for yourself, you can still spend on that. I'm a big fan of like, when you're making money, I think it's okay to spend some of the money, but you want to be able to invest and pay yourself first rather than just investing $9,125 into Starbucks over 5 years. Does that make sense? You want to put that money in other places too. And so, this is a great breakdown of different types of debt, and when you want to pay down your debt versus saving and investing as well. It's really based off of the interest rate that's in the debt. This is a good one to take a screenshot of as well. This is one that I refer to a lot in my coaching when people have have different types of debt as well. If your interest rate for your debt is over 10%, you don't want to be investing in a retirement account. You don't want to be investing into emergency funds or other investments until you pay that debt off. And the reason is it's really hard to find an investment that pays more than 10%, right? Most retirement accounts pay between 7 and 10, but you don't want to be heavily investing into something that pays less than the debt that you're paying off. So if you have a credit card that's at 27%, you want to pay that off before you pay off the lower income, or excuse me, the lower interest debt, and also before you're investing into other things. If the interest rate is between 5 and 10%, so a lot of mortgages, car loans, things like that, you want to split the money that you have from that savings gap, right, that you have. You want to split that into paying off the debt as quickly as you can. Okay, because again, if it's at 5 to 10%, a lot of investments are kind of between that same range. So you want to be paying that off. And you also, and you also want to be investing half of that money at that point. If it's 0 to 5%, so if you have a really low interest mortgage, car loans, something like that, that's between 0 and 5%, you just pay it based off of the schedule. So kind of paying it, if it's a 60-month loan, paying it based off the schedule, saving the rest, right? Like if you bought a house in 2020 and your interest rate is 2.5% or something like that, you don't need to pay that off earlier because inflation is higher than that right now too, right? So you're seeing where the difference is between the debt and what you could make based off of the investments and the places that you're putting your money as well. When you're looking at having kind of like an ideal cash flow system, I know a lot of you guys are, this is your first leadership academy. This is your first TLA. This is, you've not been around forever. Some of you guys are going to be running offices. Some of you guys are going to be assistant managers. Got kind of a variety of different places. Regardless of where you're at in the business, this is kind of the ideal cash flow system. So having your money coming into a business checking account or wherever your big amount of money goes to, and then trying to set it up where it automatically goes to your personal account, tax withholdings. So having withholdings saved with the company or a separate account that's saving for taxes, and then automatically investing as well. That is one of the biggest tips that I can give you guys, is if you can set automatic investments up, even if it's small amounts every week or every month, that accumulates pretty quickly, right? Even if it's $10 a week, that's $520 over the course of the year that you're accumulating just going towards whatever you're saving for as well. So this is another good one for a screenshot. Just trying to set things up. When you're a DM, if you get incorporated, those types of things, that's when it is more important to have a business checking account and the personal account. So if you're a CSP or you're a DM that's incorporated or working towards that, that's when I would say that this specific structure makes sense, but still having it where your money's going into different places automatically is the best way to set that up as well. I'm sure you guys have heard that it's important to keep track of your expenses. So there's a couple different ways to do that. Number one is the shoebox method, which is just throw all your receipts in a shoebox and label it, 2023, just have it all somewhere where just in case you get audited, you do have that as well. The better version of that would be manila folders that you're labeling either by month or by campaign or by year or by whatever you by quarter. You can have that as like, January through March 2023 or whatever you want to have that as. There's also apps like Expensify. So Expensify, you just take a picture of the receipt and then you put whatever category for expense it is. So you can just categorize it specifically through that. Just finding a way to track your expenses. I like just tracking my mileage, just creating an Excel sheet and just adding up the mileage for each day that I was driving. That's one thing that I would make another note is you're not necessarily tracking when you're buying gas, but you are tracking the mileage that you're driving for work. So if you're driving to demos, you're going into the office, you're going to conferences, you're driving to the airport for a trip, make sure that you are tracking all of that mileage as well, in addition to the actual expenses. This is how rising stock comes in, especially for branch and district managers and CSPs, is we track all the different types of income. I know this is a little bit blurry, but this is what the profit and loss statement looks like. So profit and loss is pretty much what are you making? Where's all your income coming from? And then what are your business expenses, right? So if you have other expenses, you're spending money on team night out, you're spending money on business travel, it's just getting things categorized in the right places. Okay. That way, you know what you're spending on what as well. And we're tracking profitability and helping to, again, decrease expenses and increase income throughout that process. Right now, again, I know not most of you aren't running offices. Anybody who is not currently enrolled in Rising Stock and is a district manager, CSP, anything like that. If you do enroll in January, you get a month free for the year as well. So if you're a current manager, that is an option. I'll give you guys my number. So if you have questions about any of that stuff at the end, definitely text me. It's not a huge deal, but just so, if you are interested in getting started with that, that's an option. Anybody for next summer, I'll have another talk with y'all and we'll talk more about that towards the summer as well. So the paradox of being young is challenging, right? Because we're young, typically we may not have as much money, but we do have time and we do have options, right? Where you have a lot of options. I think that's one of the things that's challenging. Does anybody ever get overwhelmed where it's like, we're talking about like all these different places where you can put money? It's like, where the hell do I start? Like, I'm not really sure what to do with this. And so that's one of the things that's really challenging about being young. But again, it's like you have time. There's exponential growth, which I'll talk about in a minute as well. And it's just getting started is one of the most important things. The rule of 72, I know I'm just kind of bouncing around. I want to make sure that we have time for questions at the end. But the rule of 72 is a basic investing rule that helps you to see how long it takes for you to double your money, right? So based off of the percent that you're getting back on the investment, how long does it take to double your money as well? I see a picture, so I'll wait till the picture's taken and then we'll go to the next slide. So this is an example of that. So let's say that you have a 7% interest rate investment. 72 divided by 7% is about 10 years for it to double. So if you invest $2,000 at a 7% interest rate at the age of 25, it will take 10 years to double. So by 35, it'll be at $4,000. That same $2,000 investment doubles again in 10 more years. Okay, so just because it's at 7%, this is exponential growth. So that $2,000 in 20 years becomes $8,000. Okay, 10 years later, it becomes $16,000. So it doubles again. 10 years later, it becomes $32,000 because it doubles again. And 10 years later, it becomes 64. And 10 years later, it becomes 128. Okay, so if you start investing early, again, like if you have 7% year over year compounding interest, so it accumulates interest and then it accumulates interest off of that next amount. And that's how it doubles over those 10 years as well. So a cup of coffee a day, that was like $1,900 a year, right? If you make that one-time investment, what if you increase it? What if you put 2,000 per year in it? Right, then the exponential growth grows even more and it continues to get even bigger. So Albert Einstein's famous for saying compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Okay, anything that you want to look at in terms of compound interest, if you're really curious about this, I would look at just Google Roth IRA calculator. Okay, Roth IRA calculator. It goes through this concept with Jack and Diane. So if they're both 21 years old, and Jack waits 10 years. So he doesn't start investing until he's 31. Okay. And then he invests each year for 34 years. So from 31 to 65, he invests $170,000 in those 34 years, and he will have $1.35 million by the time he retires, which is nice. It's not horrible, right? But if Diane starts investing that $5,000 for those 10 years, so the 10 years Jack's waiting, she invests $5,000 each year and stops. Only invests $50,000. By the time she's 65, that $50,000 is $2.2 million. Okay, so Jack invested more than triple, right? More than triple, and also has $1 million less, right? So the sooner you start, the better, right? Again, you don't have to invest $1 million. Can you invest a little bit? Can you start that process and get it rolling? I remember I heard this talk my first summer with Cutco, and I put $2,000, from my first summer into my retirement account, right? So just getting something started is the best way to do it too. This is another quote that I love. All the benefits in life come from compound interest, relationships, money, habits, anything of importance. So if you invest things consistently, early and often, right, it's going to continue to contribute to that. It makes it where it just gets better and better and better as well. This is the order of investing. So I saw Drew was like, yeah, what the hell? Like, where do I put money? Like, what do I do with the money that I have going on? So first step would be HSA. So that's step 1A. I would say Roth IRA is step 1B. So these are kind of interchangeable. You don't necessarily need to max out your HSA in order to invest into your Roth IRA. These are the 2024 limits as well for the max contribution. The reason the HSA is the first investment, so that's your health savings account. Pretty much you put money into your health savings account. It can only be used for health costs, right? So paying for, any emergency that happens, paying for if you want to get LASIK at some point, paying for fillings, paying for new glasses, paying for any medical expense is what the HSA is for. The reason that the HSA account would be the first one is because you don't pay taxes on the way in, and you also don't pay taxes on the way out. That is the only investment account where you're not paying taxes at any point, and it still is accumulating interest as well. So 4150 is the maximum that you can contribute to that. If you are under 26 and you're still on your parents' health insurance, you don't need to worry about this yet. That's not something that you would be contributing to. So that is the caveat to that too. If that is you and you're under 26, you're on your parents' health insurance, I would look at your Roth IRA. So that would be 1A at that point as well. Roth IRA, you could put $7,000 in per year. Okay. If you have, so the next step after Roth IRA, if you do not have an employee who's worked for you for more than a year with 1,000+ hours and you're 1099, which all of you are because you work with Vector, you are able to put money into your solo 401k or Roth 401k. This is, if you're a district manager and you start making 40, 50, 60, 70, 80,000 a year and you're able to start contributing large amounts, once you max out your Roth, you could put up to $23,000 into your solo 401k or Roth 401k per year. After that, you would start investing in profit sharing. If you're not incorporated, okay, you could put approximately 19% of your profit, so of your net income. If you are incorporated, it would be 25% of your allocated salary that you have for that too. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. It is a complicated process, but if you are incorporated, you can give up to 25% of your salary for that too. There's a couple different ways that you can do this. So you can do it yourself, American Funds, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Vanguard. So you can either start working on it with yourself. You can find a financial advisor. I would recommend asking for help and support and finding somebody that can help steer you in the right direction. So I started with a financial advisor when I was 19 on my first summer with Vector, and that was how I started my Roth as well. Finding support from Rising Stock, finding support from your DVM, finding support from peers and people that have done it before. If you have a CPA, right? But figuring out different ways to start looking at what money do you have, where can you start putting money, and just getting started with that too. After, if you're maxing all these things out, again, permanent life insurance would be the next thing that you would look at too. So if you're maxing it out and you're saving all of that per year, you would start looking at having some type of life insurance policy too. So if you max all of these things out in a year, okay, assuming that, you're putting 4,100, 7K, 23K, you are saving $45,000 a year and investing that, but that also saves you about $15,000 in taxes. Right? You save a lot of money in taxes if you max these different things out, right? There's a lot of rules to the game. This is one of the things. If you're investing a lot, you're putting a lot into the market, it pays off in the long term. You're spending a lot less in taxes too. So, that's definitely the order of investing and the way that I would start. Again, Roth and HSA are 1A, 1B. I don't think it's a bad idea to start investing in both, right? I think it just depends on what are your priorities, right? Having it where it's like, do you anticipate having medical expenses that you want to have in the next 5 to 10 years, right? Is that something that's important to you to start having that money that's specifically allocated for that? Or do you want to just have a large amount saved just in case, right? I think it's depending on what is the most important thing. That is the biggest tax benefit too, right? Again, the HSA is the best in terms of taxes. To move from survival to stability, change in habits, we talked about that. To move from stability to success, it is the change in mindset. So I would write down in your guys' notes, what are my beliefs about money? Okay, what do I believe about money? And why? Right? Why is that what you believe about money? Right? What has contributed to that as well? Would you guys agree that core beliefs influence behavior? If you believe money is bad, you're probably not doing a whole lot to try to amass money and invest and build wealth. Right? I think that that's important just to understand. So examining your core beliefs, right? Does you having money take it away from somebody else, right? Are rich people bad? Are rich people selfish? Are rich people powerful? Are rich people influential, right? Like, what are the words that you associate with money? And examining that too. Do you believe that you deserve financial wealth? Or do you believe that that's not something that you're capable of for whatever reason? Okay, whatever reason is making you believe that. And if you believe that you don't deserve to accomplish financial wealth, how hard is it to accomplish financial wealth? It's damn near impossible, right? If you don't believe that you can run 5 miles, You're not going to train to try to run 5 miles. Right? You're like, there's no way I could ever run 5 miles. Well, you probably can't run 5 miles today, right? But if you start training and working at it daily, weekly, and you're coming up with a plan for it, it makes it a lot easier to accomplish that goal, right? Is money something for other people, or is money something that you can accomplish? And so just examining your core beliefs. This is a great analogy that I like using when I talk about money. If you have crabs in a bucket, has anybody heard this analogy? Anybody heard this story? Cool. I love this analogy. So if you put crabs in a bucket, right? If you put one crab in a bucket by itself, okay, it can climb out of the bucket, right? It can figure out a way to climb up the walls and climb out of the bucket. If you put two crabs in a bucket and one starts climbing out, the other one reaches up, grabs it, and drags it back down. Okay, you can't have multiple crabs in the bucket. So if you have four crabs in the bucket, same thing. No crabs are getting out. But if you have one crab in a bucket by itself, it can get out of the bucket as well. So I want you guys to think about, who are the crabs in your life? Okay, who are the crabs in your life, especially financially? Okay, who are the people that you know that you spend time with and they don't save money and they don't invest and they're always broke and they're always talking about, I need to be making more money, I need to be, X, Y, Z. Okay, are you one of the crabs in your own bucket where you're fighting with yourself right now and trying to figure that out? Is like, don't allow people to drag you back down. Try to bring people up, right? But sometimes you just need to get a new freaking bucket. Just get out of the bucket with other people that are trying to bring you back down. Is that landing a little bit? Okay, so I think that that's really important, just to understand that if you're associating with people that are bringing you back down, right? You are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, right? You guys have heard that saying probably 5,000 times since you started with Cutco. You're probably tired of hearing it. But think about who you spend time with and what are their financial habits, and what habits are you accidentally taking on? Does that make sense, right? So don't be a crab in somebody else's bucket. Don't let any crabs be in your bucket. And I think that this is one of the things that, like, guys, this is not an easy path, right? 60 to 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Most people don't have money. You guys know what's normal? Debt. Okay, most people are in debt. Most people are broke. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck. I think it's okay to not be like most people, right? So blaze your own trail. You guys, like, if you start a trail at the beginning, there's a lot of weeds and plants and stuff all over it. Once you've walked over that trail 20, 30, 40, 100 times, it clears itself up, right? It's more of a clear trail. It becomes easier. Just because it's hard at the beginning doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile. Okay, and so spend the time to figure out, where do you want to go? And if you don't see a lot of people going down that trail, don't be afraid to be the one who blazes that trail, right? If you don't associate, if your family doesn't have a lot of money, or your friends don't have a lot of money, or you've never had a lot of money, this is not something that's going to be easy, but it is something that is possible. And I think that being willing to go through the rough patches, right, is really important in terms of getting to the other side. Okay, if you want to go somewhere, you got to sometimes go straight through it. So don't be afraid to be different. I think that that's one of the biggest things with money, is like, don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to be one of the people that is saving money each month. Don't be afraid to say no to things that cost money, right? When you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something else. Okay, and so it's okay to be different with where you're at financially as well. I do want to talk about specifically, how do you set good financial goals? Okay, how do you set goals that are really what you want to accomplish? Who's ever set a goal that you set the goal, you talk about the goal, and it doesn't feel like your damn goal? You're like, I don't really want to accomplish. Like, you say it because it sounds good, right? It's like, this would be cool, but like, I don't really want to put the work in for that. It's like, yeah, that would be nice, but like, I'm not really committed to it. So I think in order to accomplish the big financial goals that you want, you got to set financial goals that really are in the direction that you want to go into. So this is the step-by-step breakdown of how I would set financial goals. Okay, set financial goals based off of what you're trying to accomplish. Number one, in order to grow your numbers, you got to know your freaking numbers. So I would do a statement of financial position, which I actually updated mine today. And so the statement of financial position is, I'm going to show you guys just an example. This is what the statement of financial position is. At the top, it's just all of your investments, all of your assets. What is all your savings accounts at? What's all of your investment accounts at? What's your withholdings at? What's all of the money that you have, any other assets you have, car, other things that you own, houses, other investments. What is your total assets at? Underneath that, you have your total liabilities. And based off the difference, you find out your net worth, right? So you want to figure out where are your numbers. This is another thing that I look at with Rising Stock clients on a, every 2 to 3 months, we update where their statement of financial position is. Is their net worth going up? Where we get putting money? All those good things too. So that would be the first step. Full financial breakdown. Where are you at right now? In order to know where you're going, you got to know where you're at. Second thing would be, what is your personal and professional monthly budget? Okay, if you don't know what you're spending, it's hard to change what you're spending, right? When I said, does anybody have something they could cut expenses? Most hands went up. But what is the budget for that, right? If you're trying to cut your eating out bill to X hundred a month, right? What's the budget? How are you tracking that? How are you making that consistent? The easiest way that I would say to figure out what these numbers are currently is just go past like the past 3 months. It's like, what are your average expenses, right? What are the things that are consistent? So if you're paying rent, you're paying your mortgage, you're paying your car insurance, you're paying, XYZ, what are the things that are consistent? And then what are the averages over the past 3 months for everything else? So if you're like, I have no idea how much I've spent on gas, go check all the gas stations for the past 3 months and try to figure out what you're spending each month, and then come up with a budget based off of that. You can say, hey, this is currently what I'm spending. This is what I want my budget to be. What would you like that actually to look like? The third step would be income goals and projections. Okay. So based off of your sales, based off of assistant manager income, based off of, if you're a district or, whatever your role is, what is your income goals and projections? So based off of your schedule, what is your minimum goal? Right? It's like 5 demos a week or 10 demos a week or 7 demos a week or 15 demos. Like, what is your minimum goal for your schedule? And then what is your stretch goal? And based off your averages, if you do, 7 demos to sell $1,000 was the number that I always use with breakdowns, right? So 7 demos for $1,000 in sales. Based off of that, what income can you expect, right? And then based off of that, what should your schedule be? So that's the fourth step, which is plugging in the daily and weekly actions into your schedule that grow the savings gap, right? So that is decreasing expenses and increasing income. Guys, making lunch, meal prepping would be one thing that could reduce the amount that you're spending. Who eats out like 5-6 days a week because you're busy, you're running around doing demos, you're in the office, Chick-fil-A's close, there's a Raising Cane's 1 block away from my first office, so I ate Raising Cane's like 4 times a week. It was horrible, right? And so like, think about like, what are the things that you could do to decrease this expenses and to increase the income? So getting really consistent with demos, never having a 0 week, right? What are the things in the places in the business where you need to invest that you can make more money? The next step would be automate your payments, savings, and investments. So there's a great book called The Automatic Millionaire. Okay, The Automatic Millionaire. It's the first investing book that I read my first summer that just basically talks about the importance of automatically creating these investments and these contributions as well. So I would highly recommend reading that book or some other books. It's by David Bach, B-A-C-H. So The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach is a good one. I have a lot of books that I could recommend, so if I can talk about that in a second, but automate your payments, savings, and investments. The more automatic you can make it, the better. You don't want to have to think about the investments. Pay yourself first, right? Have it where it automatically pays you, and then you can pay your bills, and then you can take care of all of the other things. But pay your future self, right? Pay your future self through those early investments. I would review at least 1 time per month and adjust your game plan. So have a meeting with money with yourself. It's like, hey, what's working? What's not? Am I going the right direction? Am I going the wrong direction? Is it okay if you have a bad month? Yes, right? Is it okay if you allow it to turn into 2 bad months? Probably not, right? Because at that point, you're starting to get concerned about where your money's at, and you're probably starting to look for another job, right? So having that each, once a month or every other week meeting with money just to adjust and figure out where you're heading. Next step would be finding accountability. So through Rising Stock, through Chris, through a family member, through a friend, through a peer, right? Who are the people that are heading the same direction as you in the business? Who are the people that are 1 step above you in the business? Who do you know that's saving money? Finding that accountability. Next thing would be celebrate your progress. I said direction is more important than speed. I really believe that. Right. And so if you're heading the right direction, that makes a really big difference. Okay. I checked today in my statement of financial position. Since the last time that I did my update, my net worth went up by $6,000 from a combination of paying off some debt and also increasing savings and investing in different things too. So again, it's like celebrating that progress. I looked at that today. I was like, That's awesome. Over a couple months, being able to build up the net worth a couple thousand more dollars as well. And then the more you learn, the more you earn. The more you learn, the more you save. So I would say spending some time learning, spending some time reading about money. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm sure you guys have heard of that book 1,000 times. That was the book that I was listening to on audiobook the couple months leading up to investing in my first property. Okay. So I bought my first house in 2020. That was one of the books that really shifted my mentality, right? So again, you got to shift habits and then shifting mentality. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a great book as well. There's 1,000 of them. Secrets of the Millionaire Mind would be the other one that I would recommend too. So those are the 3 books that I would say if you can spend some time reading. Secrets of the Millionaire Mind is by T. Harv Eker, so Eker as well. So spend some time learning, listen to money podcasts, listen to money stuff. Again, it's just figuring out different ways to learn the things that you don't know and then spending the time to create that as well. Wanted to spend some time, have you guys share some key takeaways as well. If anybody wants to take a screenshot of this too, this is my email and my phone number. You guys are welcome to send me a text if you have questions. Send me an email if you have questions. Would love to connect with some of you guys as well. Looking forward to working with a lot of y'all, hopefully, that are going to be going DM. Those of you that are going branch as well. Looking forward to hopefully coaching you guys too. So any takeaways and then questions as well. I know we have about 6 minutes left. So let's do, if I can just have you guys share a couple quick takeaways, just go around and share those. And then if you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer those too.
Hey, Adam, I don't know if you can see in the chat, but there's been a bunch of feedback in the chat, as well as we go a little bit over 6 because of Q&A. I'm cool if you have time. If you don't have time, that's fine.
Yeah, but I'm great.
Okay, cool. Just wanted you to, I saw the chat kind of going. So who wants to go first? Just go ahead and unmute. You can either put it in the chat or just, I'd prefer if you just unmute and just talk to Adam directly in the group here. So who's up first?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And I thought, it's so basic, but if you don't know where you are, you're not going to be able to figure out where to go. So that was like brilliant. And I really liked the 4 steps and the change in habits, the change in mindset, and the change in priorities. Well, that's blown me away. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Linda. I love that you have a hyphenated last name because there's not very many of us. And that's awesome.
Who's that? Who else?
I gotta say, I don't have too many questions, but I did like how it was all pretty, straightforward. It was very easy to understand. The hardest part about this lesson is probably just putting it into practice.
Yeah. So I would just say, what's the one thing that you can implement today, tomorrow, or the next day, right? Like you got a 24 to 48 hour window to create some type of implementation, some type of action. And if you can do that, the rest of it will follow, right? So find something. I don't care what it is, right? That would be the one thing that if you guys have a group, like a group me or a group chat or something like that, that would be what I would recommend you guys posting is what is your one takeaway that you're implementing this week, right? What is the one thing that you're going to take action on? Because knowledge is great, but implementation is really the thing that's going to make the difference, right? And so if you can, put $1,000 into something or put $100 into something or put $50 or start an automatic contribution of $20 a week or something, right? Like what is your one step? It could just be mapping out your Cutco schedule and making sure that you have enough time to do 10 demos a week, right? Like, what is it that's going to move you in the direction that you really want to be moving to? So Apollo, love that. Thank you. Who else?
Martha. Hi. I agree with Linda. I really liked the beginning of it. The 4 stages of financial development. I really liked that. I'm going to implement the full financial breakdown. I think I'm just going to get in there, break down, and see what's going on there. So good. I really enjoyed it. I took lots of notes.
Love it.
So
good.
Thank you very much.
Good.
I really liked that there's a place to go and to kind of like make the next step happen on all the slides. Like we have the option to implement it immediately, which is really awesome. So whenever you're ready to do that, then you just kind of dive straight into it. And the breakdowns are really nice to be able to see like numbers and like interest per the percentages and stuff like that. Those are my favorite parts and takeaways. So I'm planning to start implementing those within my accounts and things that I have going on. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Guys, and I love that. I think it's just like where you are is not where you're going to be. And I think that's the most important thing to remember in this process is everybody goes through ups and downs. I left the business and I didn't work for 6 months. And then I worked at crappy sales jobs for 3 months. And then I was kind of unemployed-ish again for a couple months. And like my financial, I was not where I was when I was a district manager. And so it takes time and it's humbling, right? It's humbling when you are doing really well and then you're not doing as well. And it also makes you a better coach. It makes you a better teacher. It makes you better for it too. And so I'm glad that I went through the financial hardship that I went through because as a DM, things were pretty easy, right? It's like, I'm making a lot of money, like things are great. And then things changed when I left the business. And so, again, I'm sharing that because no matter where you get to, if you have a backslide, you can always get back to where you are. And so, and you can always continue to progress past that. So love it. Any other takeaways or questions from anybody?
Adam, what exactly did you, I understand a little bit about profit sharing and the 25% of the salary saves 15K in taxes, but that's like later, right? Like,
Yes. Yeah. Profit sharing, you'd be saving $35,000 a year between HSA, 401k, and your Roth before you really are even looking at profit sharing. And so that is something that, like, honestly, I've not done a lot of profit sharing, right? I wasn't even maxing out my 401k solo. That is the next step though. And so especially if you're incorporated, it's figuring out like there's huge tax deductions in doing that when you are incorporated too. So, again, it's all along the financial ladder. If that's something that you get to and you're a DM CSP too, it's like, all right, like let's start having, I have conversations with Adam Stock, who's the founder of the company, when people are getting to that point where it's like, all right, where are we steering this, right? Where are we steering this ship? So that is definitely much, much, much further down the road once you're saving $35,000+ a year for everything else.
all right, thank you.
It's a good question. That's I asked Adam that in a call because I was like, I haven't done a lot of this. This is something that I know like the higher level, really further along DMs and CSPs may be starting to work towards. But, that is something that, the more you learn, the more you earn. That's something that I'm continuing to work on learning too. So if I don't know the answer to something, I'm going to tell you guys too, and I'll ask Adam Stock. And that's why we have a bi-weekly coaches corner as well. So pretty much it's an hour of him just teaching us more financial stuff. So it's like Adam Stock University every other week. So I'm continuing to learn every week, every other week as this process goes too.
Absolutely, we can all learn. I just wanted to ask one more question. You had a little saying, and I missed the end of it. Knowledge is great, but action, I put means more. What did you say?
Is better. I think, I don't know. I think implementation and action. I don't even know. I kind of made that quote up. I don't even know if that was a quote, but yeah, knowledge is great, but action is really what's going to create the future that you want. Action is what's going to move you in the direction that you're going. I think action is the only thing that matters is really what I would say is if you know everything, but you don't do anything, it's the same thing as not knowing anything. Right. And so
Yeah,
I think
it's like people that say they could graduate from college. They
yes.
say they could, but did they go to college?
Right. Yeah. Hey, I could have played in the pros. Yeah, but did you?
Right.
So like,
Yeah. Exactly. I could have shot that buck last weekend, but instead I decided to let him walk.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I think that's really the most important thing is, and I would say even more than implementation and action, I would say consistent implementation and action is the most important thing. Because if you can create systems within that, right? It's like, that's one of the things that I would challenge, especially those of you guys that are new, is like, what systems create the Cutco business that you feel like is your thriving Cutco business, right? What systems can you create? Don't wait for Chris or your DM to tell you to do the system. Is like, what can you implement in your business that creates the business that you want it to be? And same thing with your finances. It's like, all right, like, let's be proactive and look at where you are, where you want to be, and then create systems that are creating that future that you're working towards.
So did you say that you suggest only for DMs and CSPs to do the rising stock, or do you feel like it's something that we should all tap into at this point just to
Yeah.
start doing it?
So the coaching is specifically for DMs and CSPs. If you're looking at becoming a branch manager, then that is something that you still can get the categorization and profit and loss statements. And there's some podcasts that get sent out to continue to learn, where it's Robert, one of our coaches, and Adam Stock sends out podcasts every month for branch managers too. There is no specific option with Rising Stock for just reps. So that is not something that is possible. I'll be giving another talk for the TLA at some point in the spring too. So my goal is that I'm a resource for y'all too. So I think that, again, it's like you may not be coaching with Rising Stock yet, but that is the profitability and bookkeeping program specifically for branches, districts, and CSPs. So if it's something where you're like, hey, that's an added benefit, maybe that's a reason to go district instead of branch. If you're like, Adam's really cool, I want to talk to him every month, go district instead of branch, because then you get a coaching call with me as well. But yeah, whatever direction you're interested in. I would also just talk to Chris. I hope that that's okay. Just saying, like, if you have questions, you're like, hey, like, I'm really curious about tapping into these different resources. Is that an option for a rep? If you're like super interested in working with Rising Stock and the cost isn't something that's an issue, I can talk to Adam Stock too about like the potential of having something for candidates maybe. But as of right now, that's not really an option. But I still want to be a resource for y'all. So reach out if I can help in any way. Love it. Other questions, takeaways? I know we're kind of at time. I appreciate you guys letting me hang out for a couple extra minutes and sticking around.
We good, guys? Last call.
Then I'm gone
I'm
forever.
good. Thank you for all the information, Adam.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam, again, man. That was again awesome. And everyone, please look at your notes. Action is more important than the knowledge. And he gave you the tools of what to do, the roadmap. He gave you the roadmap. He gave you the ATM PIN number. You just have to punch it in now. Okay, so and then keep doing demos. Obviously, that's important. You got to keep making money to be able to save money. And Adam, until next time, man. Hey, next time you're open, please shoot me a text like before, and love to have you on for the spring when we have the manager call like you did last spring.
Sure.
We'll have some new branches there as well. Obviously districts, and would love to have you on again if you're able to. So
would love
cool.
to. That's awesome. Definitely looking forward to seeing y'all again. I had something else that popped into my brain that was a pro tip, but I forgot what it was as you were talking.
Hey, welcome to the club, man. Happens to me all the time.
It's been the past couple years. I'm like, I can feel my catching up to me just a little bit.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Wait till you approach close to 50. It'll happen more and more. But all right, guys, we're going to close out now. Thank you, Brian, for being on while I was in the school. I'm still actually in the school here. And we'll see you guys next Monday, okay? And then, Adam, we'll see you next time we see you. Next time you're free.
Sounds great.
In the spring.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys. See you guys.